Future of gods and human beings. To you, the fully awakened one. Now, as is described, glory to Father, the Supreme from the shadow cloud. I prostrate, make offerings and claim the refuge of the thou that endowed should seek to destroy. The one God beyond, I prostrate, the imperfect in fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, Lord of the world, supreme guide and teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed should seek destroyer, glory to Father, secure from the shadow cloud, I prostrate, make offerings, and claim the refuge of the founder, the endowed should seek to destroy, the one God beyond, I prostrate, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Siddhartha, Lord of the world, supreme guide and teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the shadow cloud, I prostrate, make offerings, and claim the refuge of your supreme majesty and pure and undisturbed. You cast out seven scribes, and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then, I prostrate, with pure bodies, all supremely pure, wisdom ocean like golden mountain, fame that blazes in three worlds, winner of the best, all to you I prostrate, with a supreme science based on solid truth, fellow like gold, to you I prostrate, just three like you, the three worlds I love, the incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate, the Saviour having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, one God without source, I prostrate, the purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime way, the Tao that pacifies, I prostrate, first to liberate and who also showed the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realized virtues, who had devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intended virtue, I prostrate, homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three every devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms, atoms, and all aspects, with supreme faith I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. To page 15 for the Heart of Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time that Bhagavan was dwelling in this effulgent mountain in Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks venerating miniature bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration of the categories of phenomena called the Tao Perfection. Also, at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasangha Arya Avalokiteshvara was to cultivate practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and develop those five benefits also in the inherent nature. Therefore, I, Bhagavan, therefore show the trust set this to the Bodhisattva Mahasangha Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage fail who wishes to practice this activity of profound liberation of wisdom? Please stand back and let the Bodhisattva Mahasangha Arya Avalokiteshvara set this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound liberation of wisdom should look upon it like this, correcting and repeatedly behold the great sky benefits also set in inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are empty. Inherent characteristic, unconditioned, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form,
sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element, and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the endpoint of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoiced. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shardaviputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, those surrounding in their entirety along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and gadavas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. To page 25 for the short mandala.
Sangye Shingtu Mete Uwati Trokunam Dachi Lachupa Sho Kenamchi Chugyu Kala Kenze Chichine
Jeta Samhe Tuje Simala Saje Chuki Chapatus Ita
Guru Mandala Kamiriya Tayami Chodam Soche Chonmala Chanchu Badu Tagni Chapsuchi Targi Chunji Sonamji Chola Penche Sanje Drupa Sho Chodam Soche Chonmala
Chancho Bado Dani Jasa Dagi
Jipe Sonamji Chola Penche Sanje Drupa Sho
Sanje Chodan Soji Chonama
Chancho Badu Tagni Chapsuchi
Dagi Chujinji
Sonamji Chola Penche Sanje Drupa Sho
Yana Zeni Zave Dada Jibame Shirete Mishinendene Kodam de Lan Chanela, Tonyin Jisanda Javela, Shisi Hanjin Chanave Modin Jazana, Sawada Shinelu, Bandin Zavela Marabush. Taki Ningra Bende Jane, Godish Begonation. Kusondo Jungo Zeto, so I don't the Kulon come together.
Ah,
Kulon did that, Shimbe Chanju Simbi. Shimbenji Loshikitoina. Bemisi or Resta, the June Maranzo Kangi, the June Mezena, Kangi, Tamadiwadan, Yonsa Tsama. And it Susichigo, Tanda Janjan, sometimes in the Samalata, Tanda Benjela doing your way. Jujinte to Resta, you materine, some Shandash Tangerwa. The Shin Tandalayaji, Pendochi to us. Timachuna, Nishinayada, Gangi Sumis, Nishin Pendochiola, Samba, Shimbing Lochiola, Sherapoyor, Ninjugoyor, Zukiola, Julejola, Shegori, Shevala, Togoyor. What did you do? I didn't 2 years and
we should cultivate the correct intention before listening, which is the beneficial intention of bodhicitta. That is a mind that is concerned for others' welfare. It is the case that in this life we face difficulties, often because one is thinking just of oneself, although one doesn't wish to suffer. Today, however, we want to reverse that thought and think of helping others more and above removing their suffering. In order for that to take place, one needs wisdom and one needs compassion to help others. In order for wisdom and compassion to be generated, we have to know the teaching. In order to know the teaching, we have to listen and hear. So please listen with that motivation of good heart.
다 다오금라 디린 내 추치 되게 좋아하게 개와 상관이 진로
Aril. one should rejoice that again today one has the opportunity to listen to Dharma. Rejoice in that fortune.
다 먼저 능배추 능추来的 아니 수수드긴 처야 나는다 지강에 가르쳐 봐야 나래 아니 하고도 말아서 그거 타야 돼 아니 주어줘야 돼 미다고 세로 주어두고요 아니 단다지 대고 유기라야 마대와 차도야 야 단다 유기 카트에도야 단다 배샤 유기야 배샤 매와 차도야 미지 미참보이니디야 마참바차도야 다근데 처음으로나라 내주드나 강에 망보지 뭐서다 이용도 메제나라 녀다 녀신 버와서
The Buddha Dharma, the notion of being an insider, the fact that in this life we experience difficulties. Secondly, we experience impermanence and change. We can be happy and then at other times sad. We can meet people and then separate from them. We can have money only to be parted from it. And we can be friends with people only to break those friendships. So what we can see in the context of this life is that difficulty is there in our experience.
다데 진대 가도라 아니 삼로 단제로 삼로 단제 아니 딜라 펜베게 아니 탑랑 카르도 낭주 글로브존안에 제와디 그래서 라렌 쳇도나 아니 낭추 세디 코덴디 라그레스로 낭추 세디 수수 심라 강에 요디 주어다야 심라지 덕과든데 요디 덕과 세려야 근데 용디 셰럽디에도야 근데 용디 디 낭주게다 닝부로디 낭추 세디 탄다디 코덴디 딱다지 낭추 세 심 주어담베 되는다 딱다라치 투데 요레스로
So if you think about it then in terms of the method within Buddha Dharma, if you accept to study that, these words insider or practitioner of the inner, meaning that some change is going to take place. From difficulty, we can have a change of mind, and then latterly, through discriminating intelligence and wisdom, we can get insight. So you can really see how these changes take place on an inner level, nangche.
데 멤버체 아니 가서 뒤에 지 추가 돈다로도 지 라마 첨보지기 지 미첨보 깨다 첨보든데 랍션 줘도 안 랜드레오지 지신 마신 때되는 대편도 말했어. 디 코나도 랍션 줘면 스스생 이거 건조게 생긴 냠용 시전 줘면지. 건조 생긴 내다 건조 생긴 내다 로가로 왔단다로. 디스스 디 베나 와가란도 남주나라도 있나 비즈니스 클래스나라 칼라다 차다도 멘다지 요로 미딤디나라 멘다지 요로 안테네마 멘다 요로 제단디 고 칼라드 직보이나 대사드 직보 국자드 직보이나 비즈니스 클래스나라 국자 멘다지 요로 제단 딜 바고 콘도 계지 시기로 가는 미망고지 아니지 미게라 전부다 직된데 직직로든 라비아 에라메라 따지테 되게 심나라 다 주바다 tumna tigiyore na so ya khashe mi dinde susu semla tagda ringi yun jubadan thugudu na tigiyora de member cheje an de ro ji lendwe che ya so ro janya ji de ne ana zo sem de ene chö gi thonda de pha chi lo tharang bo ji she ne dinyi baru la ya dewa me so ro cha de no an zo semla phingi yo ma re so.
But if we understand Dharma to be something other than our own mind. For example, if we just think we can rely on a famous teacher or a big lama and then just kind of following what they say, well, that might be fine, but they are not us. Those great teachers are not us. It's like you go in a plane, but there's a difference between business class and economy. The seats are different, although the food might be somewhat similar. Anyway, so if we just follow the famous people and repeat their words like that, it's okay if that affects a change in your mind, but just to follow and repeat, meaning that the Dharma is something out there and nothing takes change in your own mind, not much benefit in that.
이제 수수심이 빠고에 말아서 그나 둘러를 수수 빼셔야 빠고에 칼라시 사고라 상관나로 먼저 펩스트인데 나도나 아니 칼라사든지로 고모돌라 동다동다도 그러 말아서 고모 십주 납주 숨주 지에도 사나다다요 디토골라 디 템바에 도와차여라.
So if you've got the money in your purse, if you were to go to 5-star, you could pay like thousands for a meal. But for us, $40 or $50, we'll do it, and we'll settle for that.
아니 칼라드스 심어도 드스 심어더라. 사가 구겨도 로골기 상한데서 건체와 칼라 심어요. 사가 깨다 심어도 칼라 심어도 깨요 말아.
Yeah, so local restaurants are okay, and it's not that expensive. The food is good. Maybe those big expensive ones aren't that good anyway.
The Jagala the festas na dora.
Yeah.
Festas na cha and the chakilas chila. That Java como 동다 찍지. como 앞제인데 찍더라.
Yeah.
차는 신부차입니다.
Aha.
신문 딜레 매 랑가스를 써든지 차 그나 dollar 바가시나래 dollar nga세죠. 와 리베다 como 취제로 dollar 슬랍스는 줄 심나 콜렉하고라. 이네 나가가한테라 dollar시 dollar nga로. 이네 페스타나라 아니 dollar ngap자 dollar 둔자 된대시고 자갈에 페스타도 차 빼면서 건져 버려다. 자는 신문에 믿어라. 심야님에 건청한테 심어도.
Like in India, if you go to like a 5-star hotel, just a cup of tea like the size of this cup set you back 500 rupees. But if you just it's not that delicious either, but if you just take one by the side of the road, 5 or 10 rupees, but that's really delicious. So
제가 최디 시라게 토냐 토보전냥신은 쓰는 시라 팽 말했지. 토보전냥 상다나 디스는 팽 말했어.
So to think that Dharma is something really high out there doesn't benefit your mind so much.
그런데 수수 셈 내단이 시어체. 안 텔라바고에게네 카레 탑랑 카르도.
맞아.
수시에딩에 셈라 팽기도 됐다고다. 현예디 미수위는 이걸 인지민지 기계인 거야 말을 전화서 주로 두거든 되게. 주신 수수 셈 강에 세도는 기계원에 데려다와. 기계원에 데려와.
So then the main thing is to know one's mind, and then to recognize the method for helping your mind, and who taught you such a method might not necessarily be a teacher, but even if it's a Dharma friend that gives you advice, that's fine, that's enough, if it's benefiting your mind.
아마 세럴레데디 조보 지나가서 조보 가여봐. 이제는 조보 숨 가서 빼자야고 여봐. 먼저 자동 빼자 수수도 용 뒤와든데요나 아니 건설을 계속이다. 건설을 빼야고 여봐. 저는 개개래요. 그냥 건설이야. 나 건설 수 뒤와리야. 예 봐라. 도시에는 먼저 조보 니오시비 차르죠. 먼저 조보가 조보 빼 니오가 유스로 이제는 먼저 이제 당갈라보다 지자한데 빼자 사 dundaare tingma ni sumnang so nimdo ru che zongore ne de ne chasu daga se bala dege yo marwa ne beje konzo ge tiwa khare na de ti nge tiwa khare na de ti 저 주주니 선 배제고라 게지 네 저들링 제대 자동 인데 되게 여러 제단데 편도고 싶지 않아 메제나라 주주 편도 차라 지르바 주주 뭐네 지 흘르지 게지 셰 용도도 하고 제가 디 메제나라 편도 체마지 세야데 수수 칸냠라녀 얘기 미두지 편도 그래서
Yeah. In the monastery in Sarah, there were 5 of us close friends that used to go together, and 3 of them were particularly good in texts. They were good in study, and so we would just go out and have tea and ask questions and receive good answers from them. I would ask them, and then sometimes they might ask me a question, and the 5 of us were so close. Particularly during the exam period, it was useful to have this question and answer 2 or 3 times per week. We would have tea, and we wouldn't just talk, blah, blah, blah. It was useful stuff. And it was stuff, when I look back on it, that really benefited me, and in the context of my life, benefited me. And I look back in the relaxed way in which we talk together. That's really a good friend, isn't it?
세상다 말아서 당고 수수 셈게 내당당 수수 삼노당당다 아니 수수 메제게 대화 차단도서 시버체 도서 레라 버와 디즈 인지 민지게 밀러티 게제 두고 말아 수수 냠용 돈에다 수수 하고야지로 하고는 되게 여러 딜 인지 민지게 밀러게지 티 삼노당 지고 말아 수수 말하면 제나라다 단도파 강에 가르도 만디고 가르도 디게디야 삼노당은 디게 다디 가르치는 어디 용되게 요래서 가르치는 용거 요래 어디 주젠 디게 삼노당 주젠디 수수 삼노당다 수수수를 내라 그래 아니 되네 베자다 곰자 다또 계지시니 곰자들 또 삼노당지 셔럽이나 아니 뒤에 렌드라 용거 렌레 라운드 아니 심게 독과 파파파 세로 심게 독과 세로나 아니 동해도 총로 거라 신 독바당 암다 근데 잖냐 제대네 마지we 용거 여러 가지 독과 암다 용야지 수수를 렌드라나 독바데 세로 거라 독바데 세나 로데와 용거 여러 로데와 요나 심나 시와 용거 여러 지산디 낭추래니 수수 삼로 당제 심나나 코덴지라비나 아니 낭추 게 투아로디 칼라드마스나 심부라 그래서
The point is to understand your mind and the reality, the way you think in this life, the way you connect with others, the way you know your mind. This is not something you need to ask others about, but from your own experience, reflecting on this life, what has been good, what has been difficult, and then reflecting, why have I come here? So it's good to think deeper on causes and conditions. And if you really do that thorough reflection, you'll get the answer. Of course, you need to do meditation and study, but the answers to your doubts will come through the wisdom. And of course, what we want is to have less doubts, because if you're constantly doubting, then your worries will become more, and you won't be so relaxed. But if you are able to do this analysis and dispel your doubts, you'll be more relaxed, more peaceful. And what we say is that you begin to get what's called like a taste of the Buddha Dharma. What is a good food?
지산 디응아란조 단다 빼미시 개워상보래 다자도 마셔제 두하게 깔레시 어지 자로 다자도 마셔제 개워 제시 체산뢰 땅 아니 신나지라 동보대 힌두게 데 곰잡 신의 톱 신의 톱 설명하나 아니 롤라카둑제 아베 깔레시 어지 잡네 아니 디 깔레 잡산조 데부타도 진저데 단당한서 돼야 되래 대자마세 아니 다 자가게 빈두난게 스스 류단 소드스 류단 성교 체험을 하고도 벽에 아니 로자와당 라마 캠보드스 스스 류소 소 le tang je ba le tang ne phe ne de nam du da de mo da de ne yo ma pe shi na ji ko ba jab do go chen se da ane kuma da chagwa da da de ge gang ye shi ji yo ba du sang ma ma zen ba ane ka le ja ga ne phe le de shu de je dan da zo de 직 단다 퇴셔져 다셔져서 칼라도 마서나 사셔져데 미망보게 르다 르소 롱저베 소 르다니 갈레제션지 되버지레 이거서 하고 그래서라디 딩원에다가 레하고 중딩주 자원이네 말이디 뱀메세게 자신보다 미망보게 소 변의 정도 중딩주 되버지레 딩원서 단다 롱제기요라 딩원서 하고 왜나 아니 수수수 가고 뭐야 당랑 내 개와 성분인데 내지 로정체 암저 되기 중요하대 위인상 안치레 암저 되는데 셈나라 가와지야 되는 거로 되면은 네 다가 시당게 로변로 상무 두시잖아 편연대 님이 연구요 말에 편연대 지당하게 두시 태워주면서 매비는 편연대 들어봐고 님이 연구 말에 수중원에 배 두시디 대제 지금 배 가서 오래 지고도 오래 통으로 집이나 들어봐고 수술라야 누가디 연구요래 수술라라래 요와 저선 하나만 저 돼야 돼 하자 그자 전부 쉬워지래 당원에 안 들어
We are extremely lucky. Shakyamuni Buddha put in so much effort to get the result he got of going through the austerities that he went through, the hardships. At the time, there were Hindu practitioners prevalent, but he went forth and got the result, spiritual result. And we are experiencing the result when we hear the Buddha Dharma. Well, not only Shakyamuni Buddha, but the great pundits of India gave up their bodies and lives for this Dharma. And latterly, the practitioners of Tibet, the kings and so forth, gave up their bodies and their very life for the Dharma. In those days, there were no planes, but they would traverse and travel at tremendous danger. There were like wild animals and bandits and so forth. And they did that so that we now can hear and see and meet the Dharma directly as if it were ready to eat meal. And this has come, we should understand, this has come from a tremendous amount of effort on their part. They gave their very lives for this. And if we really understand this, what we're experiencing as the result of their effort, we will really treasure how holy and special it is. And then in that sense, that we should rejoice in that we have experienced this result. Rejoice in every word that we hear. If you treat it as just a class, it will just be another class, if that is your perception. If your perception is normal, it will be normal. But if your perception is a little bit more firm and deep, then it will go somewhere. We're at a very lucky time now.
제단다 딜레야 다 계지주디 셈게 난게 남도 저는 셈게 난게 아니 수수수수 셈게 줘봐 봐 남도라 되니 남도라 되니 남도 세신주디 라트니 디시투나 시방원에 되다 셈게 낭초게 과정원에 되네 라용거 레스바
So then what's really important is that the mind's thoughts are pacified. These elaborations, which in turn make other elaborations and mental constructs, we need to be able to recognize pacifying those is the whole point of Buddha Dharma.
제가 다 딜레야 탑람 망부지에 나네 셈바 시고서야 그 탑람 남도 뇽다 탑람 곰 또 저런 상물랑도 데 산이마 진짜 연구요 꾸롱 곰자 농정체 울어 장가집 제시도
Yeah.
디베 오늘 심 시고서야 그 탑람 초도 주버렸다 다디 무트네 저저 이래 메시네 곰양세양세양세양스자기나 빼야고 요래서
So, in terms of the many methods to subdue the mind and make it peaceful, those of you who attend the Sunday class, beginning with the motivation, breathing exercise, counting the breath, and so forth, this is really the best method to subdue the mind, pacify the mind, and making that again and again consistent is good.
다들 쌤게 나랑도 상말로다 디지고고요로 기보고고요래 시바고고요래 기보고고요래 쌤 기보고야라 다 탑람 낭배추네 망고지 송고요래 개지슈디 chanjugu sem shenbi chanjugu sem sana nyingji shenla nyingji gomyada chambada zewalam na digre chanjugu sem la o dila dende de samlo tan tuba yina ane ngone nganzo ran dewa shen dewa ran she ro sum changma dewa yongre sedan jidan thamla mangbo yewe na ne dizngo ma sungzo nyingji chenbo diga na samlo tan chanjugu sem dela dene jeng mo sheda chwe mangbo la la go mare ne chigla la chi kharesna nyingji chenbo labs So
then we're talking about well-being for your mind, mental peace. The best method of that is bodhicitta, which is coming from great compassion, loving kindness, or we could say affectionate regard for others. And if one can reflect on those attitudes, cultivate them, then there is well-being for self and other. As Shakyamuni Buddha stated, there's not need to say much. Just work on one thing, which is the great compassion, the bodhicitta. As we have been through past weeks, the importance of compassion in the beginning, the importance of compassion in the middle, and the importance of compassion at the end of the practice, indispensable. Yeah.
lo de jangbe shidu ba sirwa ta shenben shenduen tundi nyene ene lo ngazo tanda shenduen pa shenduen samlo ko gumo da wa randuen jan samlo ko randuen de rang jinzi jan samlo ko randuen de randuen yang ta ko ji mare ngazo randuen rang jinzi ranyi jinzi su jigo de dala ene mi shen la ben mi shen nangme tangje mi shen je de den la samlo ma da ma che su jigo ge ne tanda jan samlo dan de yin 당긴건 쉬우나 시리 말아서 단다사고 가서 강에다 동해날 홍고야디 가릴홍으로서는 란진지 숙치라고 한 게 흉대브레스와 란진지 님이 시에 말에 단ang 하나서 동해 뇽대야 되지 삼로야다나 란진지를 중화데 라트브레스로
What is this mind of bodhicitta then? It is the twofold aspiration. Firstly, for others' welfare. Secondly, the thought to attain to full awakening, Buddhahood. So, those for that bodhicitta is the beneficial intention. So it is all about others, but as I just mentioned, for us, we do not have that. We experience suffering and problems in this life because we have self-interest and self-cherishing. We don't see others like family. You think about just yourself and the result is difficulties and suffering. So what we don't see are the demerits and faults of self-cherishing, but really introducing or understanding the faults of self-cherishing is key.
다든다 신도 되니 로제와 로데제베 시두바스다 먼저 신도 되니 로데제와다 먼저 메도로 시다고이나 메도디 소스 디즈 7 답세게 사자디게디 야고지 고고여봐 시디로
Yeah, yeah.
어디 시디 가르 고고여 시야고지 도고 레스로
Now, in cultivating such a concern for others' welfare or altruism, we need a basis upon which to cultivate it. Just as if you are to grow a flower, before you plant the seed, you need a good ground.
저단 델라야 당고로데 점에 시래야 아니 당고 가르에서나 아 샘진라 심뇽바 도와다 샘진 이동와 남바친데 도와스다 데레도
So let's look at the foundation then for such a mind of altruism. It is equanimity to all beings and then a warmth or a closeness to them. So once again, having equanimity and then having affection for them.
다 델라 지난게 단다 당용 두야 델라 지난 톱드갈라 당용로 도트베게 요말 최단 추스니디 바람 바람지 지고 요인자 당한서 나를 기부 중후다 기부 준지 가서 셰가 따라서 원도라 소베 림바난 디리안라는 원도가 냠nen디 제디 단다 델라 고고요 레스타
Now, such a mind of equanimity or impartiality, it doesn't just come suddenly. It has to come from understanding preliminaries. What are the initial scope practitioners' foundations and what are the middle scope practitioners' foundations?
당보델라 다지 람지자와 신이딘주 기겐된다도 개주모 쉬우지 차고요 대고고요 신이 상황지 디네니 텐조 텐지 치워미다고 와 텐조 텐지스도 밀류디 아니 니에까지 니에나 텐쇼 다도서 삼로지 신고요 그런 거 류덴데 아니 대 주미 추수도 마다 안데야 텐데기 밀류디 아니 지글라로 니가 지글라스 나게로나 시리스 안딜레 시왕에와 남징이미 집에서 최마다 강음이 변바사도서 또저 시림 그 삼로돼서 글리고 여러와 이제다 되줄라 삼로 단제다 지금이다 고미야도 공부 여래서
So those foundations we need to recall, beginning with initial scope. Of course, one needs to rely correctly on the spiritual friend, on the teacher, and that friend, we should know, what defines or what qualifies a valid teacher, and then rely correctly. And then we should recognize perfect human rebirth. What does it mean to be human? And then death and impermanence and so forth. With regards to perfect human rebirth, we have to recognize what we have is very rare and what we can achieve with it is of great meaning, but that we shouldn't waste it. And then latterly, it can go out like a flash of lightning. And then at the time of death is definite and its time is uncertain, and what matters at death is spiritual insight. So really, we should reflect on things such as death and impermanence, isn't it?
와다 가래 두균 수수지 수수 메달라 쉬우지 편도라오지
Yeah.
미러버지 요에 튕게 되래 시외지 편토고 말해서 봐 이제 상담은 시라시라게 착심다 콜라야 땅진도 쉬우지 제게요 말해서 그 시도도 상마시 안에 미다 도구 도모도 인데 수수 풍부대 샤네 도고래 상담인데 아니 대조 캐시모 멤버들 라토 용도로
Really think on it in context. When you think on your death deeply, the things that we normally cling to pale in comparison. So there's less clinging if you do this reflection, let alone mention the fact that you have to leave your friends behind. You have to leave your very body behind at death. Yes.
데네다 디 주줄 상담인데 당고 텐조 텐지나 처음이다 올 상담에 세대가 나셔도 가지고 오여서 텐조니가 셀라라면 이라고 메시지 나셔도
So in that light, then, to reverse clinging so strongly to this life's happiness, we hear from Lama Tsongkhapa, by contemplating perfect human rebirth and death and impermanence, you reverse clinging to this life.
세상 두 삼로 당연히 아니 다시 시버닝 그래 나라 상말로 미상마 신이시기도 알아.
Yeah.
걸 계제 마시는 마시베시 대서면도 와카샤 다디 계제 셔면스로. 마 삼로 당메스 녀고도 슬람니 페야 말에. 제 도저 람니에 동에는 시도야 그냥 가 알아.
It is a definite given that we will die, even if you push it away and you don't want to talk about it or hear about it. Oh, I don't want to hear about death. Sometimes those type of people die first.
세상 신이 아니 가와 신이 가와 두고도 알아. 삼당으로 하다.
So then the next question is, after death, where do we go? That's the next one.
봐 예와도 지기네다. 아니 약시로 예나.
If we were just to dissolve into the ether, wouldn't that be best? But
지요 말이야.
that's
시베 주인디 준투제. 뭐 담제기 준투는 누구를 말하면서 매도로도 마치 감직직제 양코야야야 로제마디 야게용더라. 지버리 겨울에 그 마직 시도 야야직게 매도다 지고. 야야직게 다 매도 상마 감루다. 매도 매지직 거로 거래. 에 제매 매도 야게용도 말하면서 다 그러네. 마직 시도리야. 수부디 제워시 깨제야 야직 겨울에 뭐 생구준. 다디 나외 슝네 셰브나시. 나 수수 삼로 담베이네 디지메 곰잡제 수수 생게 근데 저 랭용요 신야요 지금 미직 라워디 이지 치고 말해 수수 곰 잡나 수수 신야요 그래서 저랑게 요하다 수수 저왕아마딘데 이마 저왕아마 파마딘데 임바도 수수게 텐드야 요래서 곰 잡이는 제가 지금 내제 야고래나 대 인지민지 미직 셔래 될 이지 치고 말해 수수 냠용톤이 시트베 요래서 들어
So it is not the case, however, that one might die and dissolve into the ether, because compound things, the process is compound and there's a continuation of it, similar to when a flower dies and there's a continuation through the seed. Just like that for us. We die and we're born, we die and we're born. So that flower going through continual change, drying up, and then leaving a seed. And then it is the same with us, that we are continually changing bodies, but our mental continuum is a stream of consciousness, facilitating that. Well, you might just say it says like that in Buddha Dharma, but really it is your meditation and your experience that has to validate that. Because there are practitioners who, through their experience of seeing past lives, have seen the connectedness with other beings, not just because, somebody said so, that it is the case that there are future lives, but from your own experience, from your own valid experience in meditation, you can come to see.
제단다 신이 겨워진 렌도고 요래 아니 밀어 제베 딩즈여 요 말에 시게요 말에 아니 전다 튼도도 지단 시미도도 지워래 가서 겨울랭 거라 제단도 딘데지로 마지세버디 딩즈여 말어 봐다 딘데지 키시미 겨울랭게미 저랑서 같이 치대 시밀을 가고 싶을도 와
Yeah.
겨워시마 치대 시미 겨울래 레서 그랬다 그래서 시다 거지가 다 레서 그랬다래
So the future life, there is no guarantee that one will again be human. There are dogs and cats. There's no guarantee in the sense that if you kind of like dogs and cats too much, you have to be careful that you create the karma to be just like them. That can happen, isn't it?
세상 디인디 당아지 제바치마 치단 시밀레제 달레냐오다 이다서 유시더라 이제 시 단다다지 미스턴 요게네 치단 시미 치단 시미도 때 미튼르나네 겨와때서 야가로 미다고르 자가지고도 다 미고란을 까만이 고요로 딩사 밀 약질레 마레 고란을 까만이 고요로
Yeah.
제베 마레 제베 경니 뉴뉴뉴뉴레 고란을 저거 그거다 깜레마데니 코노마나니 저거 키드심이 아셔로 하고 키드심이 등상 미라 초보도야 돼 강에 태빈다 다 키르시 미라 초보도야 주주 찾아res.
So, yeah, the future of the possibility of becoming a cat or dog. So let's leave aside the hells and ghosts. This thinking, well, if one was born a cat or a dog, it could be a little bit better because you might be in the company of a human that needs company. Well, that might not necessarily be love, isn't it? But what's being said is that the cats and dogs don't complain back. And this is the time we've reached, the time where we have to have companions that are cats and dogs that don't complain back.
기대시면 과시자라라. 밀든데요 말아. 근데 강해요다 밀든데 어지야 왜 가고르다.
Yeah, maybe it's easier for the cats and dogs because for the humans, if they connect, it's more difficult.
다 박바당, 자대당, 아니 야당, 다 두서다 내 두고 싶은 양기도 알아.
But looking at the lives of pigs, hens, and fish, that's pretty difficult.
제가 덴데질레 겨울에나 아니 가르쳐서 삼단으로 와. 겨울에 덴데질레 겨울에 말해시 세 겨투고 입에 야 말해 하고 말해 거지기 하고란 거야. 내 겨지 뭐 봐셔. 산이 가르치게 하면 야고지 하고 문다면서.
So, if one found oneself born in such a state, what to do? Well, that's there, and then can you really guarantee that you won't be born in such a state, let alone future lives? Where will you be tomorrow?
근데 인디다 제가 신이 렌데밀로 코에동은 양신 치면나 셔도 또 말해. 신의 렌도메지 땡메지 디지죠 군조스는 있어야 됐다. ningen dwe dung le ji tane kun jo sun le nang be ge jam do yon de du sion go yo re so ba de dang ngen song ge dung le ji ba jab be chi de kun jo sun le jab sto na ani jam do de on ge ngen song ge dung ge ji we le jab ya yong ge yo yin za nang be ge jam do chi go yum zen de de sta.
So then this verse we have from Lama Tsongkhapa, there's no guarantee that at the time of death you won't take a difficult migration, and understanding that one looks to the three rare sublime ones as a valid direction. So really, here comes a refuge. The notion that if the possibility of the lower migration is there, then a valid refuge in valid object. No.
제가 다나 잠도 전에 ningen song ge dung ngen song le jab tu ge be se. De twali go ro ba.
So now a valid question comes. If you take refuge, can you be protected from a difficult rebirth? Question.
당에 나게 자자자 잡투고레스로 다 룽단 로주드네 망고여 그래 로주스도 망고 shumo가 제릭바 줌젠 삼담이 나스로
100%. I would say that is the case. Of course, there are textual citations and historical accounts to back this up. But even if you just look at it from a logic, from a reason perspective,
베나처럼서 지 잠도 치스도 군조래야 잡스도지 최를 샘진을 차워치야당 아니 조래 이지체 직산제당 아니 수수 계신이당 잡된 법인데 샘나야 텐 데베 나가블라 곰잡 템텐 수수 샘나베 직 대바로 지야던데 장되나 안 티링 잠마세 도공건다 니람네 기와 산이 니만이 숨된데 된데기 잠로 쳐봐데 산제 템베기 샘기 가와디 니만이 숨 기워 연구도 알아.
야.
디 가르된 거라서는 껴치말라에 다라라고. 시글레베 셈디 개베 셈지에는 디기 데브디기 대화지 연구요라고. 만한데 껴 다라라 아니 연구도 와베 초근조의 짬고에서 최제 신뢰지. 지금 밀 펜도치야 가오고미야 아니 지 참바고미야 닝지고미야 두드리라고. 두드다 짬고에 차고요라. 디 삼노 땅연데 디링 수수 단다 당시면 내가라 수수라니 심바지와 심바시와 안도 공건다 니름데 지와 산이 니만이 숨 니레 곰디 내가라 초어로데 난 가와로데 숙천보 디오나 니마베 니마 둔다 찍드네 데 근데 연구요 봐. 다디 가르딘 거르지. 다 되나 근데 시삼로 당하시면 거 돈 10회이나. 아니 시갈로 벌려 근데 있으면 가와지나 가와야 돼요. 대화디 개외 대화 개화로 와디 개화디 그 대화 그래 대화래. 그래서 먼저 뒤에 걸라지 콘도당 차도당 아제당 대신 두수 심디 기사면도 와셔서 봐. 다 두수 예전에 지고요. 콘도 차도 아제 딘심 되자. 다 근데 그로에는 아니 예전에 지로. 디 매버제 심나는 가와 닝지 참바 저와 이제 근데 여기는 되게 된돌을 지도고요. 개월 기회도 차고. 줌젠 될 때는 잠도 채울 때는 예전에 접두고 해서 줌젠데 접두고 도서 다 삼로단다 수수 이질리 그래 봐. 삼로단은 이질리 그래.
The logic behind this then that, recalling the mental state or the mind of faith that can act. So in terms of just following the refuge and what it says to do in Buddha Dharma, because if we look at that, the real protection or refuge is in the second Dharma jewel, isn't it? The sublime jewel of Dharma, where it's encouraging us to not harm others and then to understand cause and effect and so forth. And then, but just if we recall the Buddha and have qualities in what, like the Buddha says, and have faith in that type of advice we just mentioned, then today we can be positive and happy. But also when we go to sleep, we take that happy state of mind into the dream state, and just recalling the qualities of Buddha and the advice that carries on for the next few days. Similarly, if one dies in a virtuous state of mind, recalling such things, then the future life is one of well-being, logically. This is how we can see that the real protection in one's own mind is the Dharma jewel. Meaning that if one has thoughts which are beneficial and kind, and one cultivates great compassion, that's the real protection. Because then the mind is at peace. And when the mind is at peace during the day, one carries it into the dream during the night. And one can keep that peace for 1, 2, or 3 days. And even in fact, if your faith is stable with those qualities and the valid qualities of Buddha, that can last even a week. Basically, this means that when you die, if you die with a virtuous state of mind that's joyful, the result will definitely be good. The reason being that if the mind is in a state of joy, compassion, or thoughts of others' welfare, at the same time, anger, jealousy, and pride cannot be produced. Conversely, if the mind is overtaken by anger, jealousy, and pride, then there's a danger that with such a mind consumed at that time of death would take one to a difficult rebirth. We have to understand that loving kindness, great compassion, and warmth, affection are very potent minds.
제단디 최 군조 짬외인 산제 군조 짭dem버 버리. 근두 군조 짭드베 다로를 써야지. 배 구주야고도 와라.
Yeah,
하고 싶다디.
there's a great amount to be taken from when it says the real Dharma jewel is the jewel of Dharma. The teacher of the doctrine is Buddha, and those that help you on the path are the Sangha. That's a lot there.
알아서 디 베나 땡어마 나라 디 책디 코드는라고 지네 베 가와지고 싶베나 마디 디 콤발데디 담보다 아예 고섭시엘라 가버지르와 아니 고섭데요 다디 미신다게 고섭된데 코인데 수수심 끼우면도 알아 미신다 수고를 발라발라 몸시는 수수심 끼우면도 아니 게 미신다를 된데시나 파르베 끼고 용고 말해서 네디 책디 방야를 배전체인바 고섭데 방야를 배전체인바 제도 데네베 지 수술라 투즈 망고 타야 수술라 셈 수술라 데제 시버로 좋아 미신다 통달을 주도게 주면도 저랑 가리 가와이 깨지 태우면도 데 망부티도 아니 데들 디데 친리 데데레서 밀 셰고 셰쇼로다 당분에 미디 콜라 더난 거랑 시란 마제나 아니 미디 깨지 티스나 내가 하고 메서 랍샤는 깨지 도로다 데 멤버샤 데 가래 저랑 바마 가래 바마 가두지 가와이 내가 가르치기요래 보고 가져 요래 강바 요래 모다 요래 사싱 요래 상마 계지 되지 되도 아니 제일 미신다지 내가 레레 건데 룽바 되네 레바 여라마여레 내 싱가데여 강바데여 모다데여 라고도 안디 돈다 딱데 nga주 랭게스 게 말아로 진짜 두줄 졸라 쉬우지도 되다 아니 칙 맨날 칙 두자라야 칙 두자라비나 아니 바로 심 두두라 동에서보다 이 바로 동에서도 스스 맞이고 연구도 진짜 칙디 빵샤비나 칭행바데 빵샤비나 텔레블렘베 미신레 동에메와 수술레 동에메와 연구도 진짜 추군조 짬고에서 되래 당한주 윤시기요 말에 네 고습치기요 말에 라야 수술 냠내 치토비이나 디 집에 인간에 수술레 대화라기요 시월라기요다
So in context of that second Dharma jewel, Dharma being the protection of one's mind, previously when I was in the monastery, I didn't like, to hear people say things about others, for example, gossips. After a while I felt that when I heard those things, it kind of upset my mind. So then I thought, well, better I don't talk those gossips to others because I know how it upsets me. Why don't I abandon those actions of frivolous talk? So then I found that there was more time on my hand because there was less talk and my mind was more peaceful as a result. I didn't feel like I always had to engage asking others about 1, 2, 3, just keeping it simple, not having to know, where are you from, how many family, how many children, how many cars, where's your farm, all of that. I was thinking, that's not really my business. What's the point of knowing all that? Really, no point. And secondly, harsh speech, bad speech, recognizing that such bad speech upsets others' mind and makes them suffer, abandoning that too. So this shows how that Dharma jewel is protecting you, and that protection comes with the result of you being more peaceful in heart, mind.
어떤 당분간도 락바도도 라 빵제 네 드네네 칼레 제일 타와 시바도도 용거로 와 당부 락바도 예디 빵고라 루 나게 줘봐다 류게 줘봐도 봐 디제디 칼레 빵고라다 디제 빵요나 아니 오네 남바산집에 최를 잡서 들어서 잡군조 초군조 잡고 인세야디 수수규를 내고야래 네 오네 단다디 시기였다 디수수 귤라 냠냠지 돈에 최대 돈다디 책디 하마거나 최대 시버 지기요 말아 최 시세데 란줄레 제베거네 시고르네 미기 술라다네 신 시어 마인서라 최 시세도 지당 현황도 게지티다 게시다 내를 게지티다 근데 시기메 년년 가르 시기메 세야 되거든 수수 귤라 똑바디 매스기요데 원전한도 게지티 전한도 베벨라마 게지티도 게지티다 지지라 딩에 신기메 라도 칼라 거스나 똑바디 녜줄레 매세 라고요라 시세도 똑바 줄레 찐이 시고레메지 언제 단다로지는 녜 시기였으로
야
언제도 봐 코스로 징이스토나 람상의 시기 있으면 되기도 근데 말에 시세도 무슨 줄레 냠냠지기도 안 내고레메지 직감부지 돈다 시베디 시베지기요 말해서
It's important that one abandons the gross levels first and then slowly moves to the more subtle levels, meaning that you abandon the gross actions of body and speech, and then you through studying Buddha Dharma, one can slowly start to change the mind And then that second Dharma jewel of being mind protection is experiential. That's really what it means. Your mind becomes that Dharma. Che she means to know Dharma. Know Dharma doesn't mean something intellectual, it means to have insight. So therefore, if you ask a lot of the Tibetan Lamas this and that question, they'll say, I don't know, I don't know. What they're really saying is that I don't have the insight. I don't have that realization. It is not the case that you go to a couple of Dharma courses, Buddhist Dharma courses, and you come away and you think, oh, I know that. It's not that. This notion of the second Dharma jewel affording protection means you have the insight, you have the realization in your mind through your experience.
Now the Mongolians mindfulness teacher in zero. Ani? Ale, chira lobjong kandeche, gom kandeche, cost in the doyins and mindfulness cost nimachu, chewa tingmasum doyins. Cost nimachu chewa tingmasum doja, the mindfulness teacher chazar.
There are some that say, oh, I'm a mindfulness teacher. Right, and then I say, oh, well, what have you studied and meditated? Well, I've been to 3 10-day courses. Well, that's all it takes to be a mindfulness teacher. So, I don't know. There's kind of a lot of that around.
Online course
Yeah. And then there are some who say, oh, I know I've studied. Where have you studied? Online. My teacher's online. Yeah, of course, once the teacher's online, then you've become online. But if there's a blackout, then there's no online.
Basic sura da dozo tanda di tangyom jiu chimbo lam ren dozo jiu ding da jiu chungwe lam tumo dozo da sam dogore sa de dozo ngana zo cho na la da sam dang gwe ya ji ro ngana zo samalo dungye ne de go yo mare dungye de che de ga ni ma de ring dungye da che de go ji go maro ba jiu chime dungye de ma zo sam dang go ro sam dang de ni jiu chime dungye ma ya ji 단대 동이 때에서는 아주 미들을 동네 시르고다 캐캐 말해 원하시나 아주 단대 미들을 동에 녀야 되다 다시 쉬위는 예선데 캐캐 말해 당 아주 지메 준두로 보실 끼네 박바로 보실 끼에서는 가르치 가러 되네 가르치 가러 사운드 땅 거래 대체
In the context of the great scope where we are, the basic thing we need is this impartial mind of equanimity, but that's got to come with the preliminaries of initial and medium scope. And through our experience and study, we need to reflect on our lives, not just this life, and today, not to think of those difficulties, but also to think on future life. Future lives will come. And we need to reflect on that. How do we stop the possibility of difficult future life? Well, if you look at our lives now as humans, what we call suffering in this human world is nothing. We can take it. If we were born as a pig, how would it be?
Sounds like you 짜라지나 죽이나 안 가져지 그래. 가끔 추대니야 말에 에스게 가져지는 추대가 말에
all the time outside in the hot sun and sometimes really dry mouth, no one coming to give you what you want. All you can do is make a pig sound. It is when you look at those types of suffering, difficult to bear.
생각나지 가시에 그 수수 미들을 동일할 때도 네 독자 시부 연청 삼라야보다는 개개 말어 봐 거네 신어라.
When you think of the human condition or the human sufferings and you get down and out, when you compare them with others, our sufferings are not great.
어디체도 다 두zu 삼로데 대조 응외니 준이래 간저 와 겨우시는 렌도 그래 니 가지가 이미지니 시고 다 될라 탑람 그냥 탑람 매버든데래 삼단데는 처음 탑람 요래 한다디 점르셰베이나 니송 동일에 겹투고도 와 그러와 안 잔주그 쌤 공부이나 니송에 겹투고 요래 가르잖아 잔주그 쌤디 신뱅그 쌤디 요다나 쌤나라 가도이나지 가와디 되게 요러와 대와 개와디 되게 요러와 개외 드부 카레 대와로 와쳐서 시장한테 겨울음진 가도이나 송고다 지난 시글라와 잔주쌤 거나 밀릴래야 자자 자단 바인스 베 겨울음진 팀모 망보 송고다 디 줌제 릭바데 되는 송고요러
Okay.
잔주쌤 공기 시웨이나 밀릴래야 자자 자단 바인스 봐 세상 대 줌제 카레라데 잔주 셴뱅게 쌤디 요데 쌤나는 개와도 치슈데 요러 아니 개베 드부 카레 대와레 대와디 덴로 겨울에는 밀rel레 할rel레 하면 다신을 겨울에 melam jaw mare nga thasin le jaw shen chanju sem gom da jaw len ro ro 어디 주주 내가 셴베 나 ngone da chanju sem da ning je du sam dang go ya de jam ro che wa du jum zen da rang ge da rang da shen tham je ge dong ye le ming ne sam dang go ya de da ke jung mo cha de do wa so tin du zang ya nang ba chen ne da jam su do mo do su rang ro da ina ro ina jam ro chen no phen mi shi ji chone che yo ma da han da ro
Reality is that the future life will come. Where we are going, it is not sure. If there were no method to stop difficult rebirth, that would be one case. But that's not the case. There is a method. And you can see how taking refuge or valid direction can protect from a difficult rebirth. Moreover, bodhicitta can protect from a difficult rebirth. Why the bodhicitta? Because the result of virtue is well-being. And if the mind is thinking of others at death or concern for others' welfare, good is the result. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, has often stated that it is a guarantee that at the time of death, if you have this thought of others' welfare, of bodhicitta, you will get a perfect human rebirth. There's a reason to this, why he says this. There's a logic here. Because of all the positive states of mind possible, bodhicitta is the most powerful mind of virtue. So guaranteed that if you were to die with such a mind, perfect human rebirth would be the result, and or birth in a pure land. This is because the result of a virtuous mind, on a causal level, the result is well-being. And here, great compassion is the sense of protection, and that you are concerned for others' suffering, and you wish them to be free of it, yours and others' suffering. So then that is acting to protect you as a refuge. So really, if you understand, whether or not you take that Buddha Dharma refuge is in your own hand. But I would say that there's only profit, no loss in that. It's only good.
세상다 낭배 출来的 수수 권접 수수 레스 되다 수수 권접
Yeah.
수수 권접 수수 레스
Yeah, so it says in Buddha Dharma that one is one's own protector, one's own savior.
다 수수 권접 수수냐 수수 다대 수수 레스
Conversely, one is also one's own enemy.
렘바라와다 수수 개와야 고체 냠내야 고체 domnani 수수 동이냐 먹어야 돼 용거열에 권접해야 돼 동일에 겹든이 되는 권접색이열에 근데 수수게 네 룽아가 줘봐 당부 줘봐도 증보도 나당 류지 남지 룽아 줘봐 락바디게 돼방 되네 생기디 방 도수시 야야야 양로야 땅토이나 아니 수수 권접 차래 다들 멤버체 아니 지 룽아게 줘봐 미게와 당 아니 된대간라 gen장 당대위나 아니 저치마디 동에 저치마 파산 세델레 동에 녀아도 삼 수수레 미게와 당 만디고 채워되네 단다마지고 용되게 열와 일단 딜레데네 단도 야 밀레야지 타도 당 아제 당 진심당 되자 당 콘도 당 된대 gen장랑제 대대위나 아니 되게 되부딜라 아니 독자 동해 연구요. 그래서 수 동해 손이들 다스고 여러 가지. 당원에디 어디에서 수수나래 미시지데 미순다 밀파 주주서 말에 수수 순결에서데 납제 전부 십지래도 알아야
So in the context of being the Buddha Dharma, in the context of, there's a lot of truth to that, isn't there? That one is one's own protector and one is one's own enemy at the same time. In the former case, if you do virtues and you practice well, you are protected from a suffering result. Okay, so how does that work? First, you abandon the grosser levels of non-virtue, isn't it? So those are physical and verbal. And as you get good at that, slowly you get into more subtle levels of abandonment of the mental non-virtues. So then you go from strength to strength doing that, and then you're acting as your own protector or savior. But if you were to go the other route, if you were to just do non-virtuous actions in this life, and let alone future lives, we know that if you do strong non-virtues in this very life, suffering can be the result. If we are recourse to jealousy, anger, pride, competitiveness, then because the result is suffering, in this latter case, you yourself are your own enemy.
제가 다 뒤인데 다 곰잡 수수 셈나 다저에 어떻게 생데 로종게 되는 랍 송도 수수 닌다 첸 그뒤에 수수 셈나 쉬다 당스 그뒤에야 아니 수수 지 가서 그래 류가 있음라마 다쉬다 미래 견주 마시 미견된 담마디 미기 연된다 미기 견마다 로종게 냠네데 차디 저지 반대 아디샤 랍제나는 근데 송도 다 랍제도 다 냠네 채고라 당들어
So we should effort to meditate, and meditate. And we should look at our minds. The advice from the mind training text from Atisha, which states that day and night, constantly, check the state of your mind at all times and watch what are you doing with your body, speech, and mind to guard against your own faults, but not look at the faults of others, to just see the qualities of others but not point out their faults. And these are advices from a teacher, so that advice we have to practice, right?
그냥 저지 반대 아디샤게 텐데게 랍자도서 레야 냠네 랍절레야 인자가 단다디 인도네시아네 단다디
Siling Parwa.
스리랑가로다
Yeah.
데라 자저나 다오슴 텐데 드로네 니 자저 수수랑소를 마젠바 칼레 잡신 요 랍자 텐데 징안서 단당안서 두저 투지 총화데 텐데 레스 거라 지난안서 두저 삼당 그랬어 랍자도서 테스트 냠네 치 갈렌타 투나네 야고 요레스
Such pieces of advice coming down from the master Atisha, who went through tremendous hardship in Indonesia to visit Sumatra for 3 months on such voyages, giving up the life, so that we can hear this advice today. In that context, when we listen to it, we should put effort into practicing it.
어, 야, 돼 샤오라.
We'll dedicate for today. Because Peter?
Is
Okay. Dedicate.
To page 31 for the short mandala.
Metta cha vira shini te gemparati sangye shinde me te
Xie nanga ten le jo ju je ba tang lo san ten be de me sa sum ji de we me se da do ne yu ji and la ga ne ya ta ya ni